At what point did you realize your childhood was messed up? When seeing kids hug their parents or siblings and thinking it was weird. I remember dating my now husband when I was a sophomore in high school. His mom would come up to all her kids and tell them regularly she loved them, would hug them and kiss them on their foreheads, never failing to say goodnight and to say that she was proud of them. I was blown away and got very sad when I realized that this is how parents are supposed to love their children. I literally learned unconditional love and how to be a real parent or mother by my mother-in-law. I fear if I never came across such a loving woman and mother in my life, that I too would possibly share my trauma and pass it to my kids. I already thought when marrying my husband that a normal marriage was to fight constantly because that's how my parents were. It took a lot of therapy for me to realize it all at once. I don't blame my parents, but I do want to be a whole lot better than my parents. I was talking with a few friends about my parents one night while drinking. I said that despite the floggings I got growing up, my mom and stepdad were still awesome. My friends had a confused look on their faces and asked what did I mean. So I told them about the numerous times I was beaten with wooden spoons, belts, spatulas, jug cords, extension cables, and basically anything else that would hurt but not break skin. My friends were beyond horrified and explained to me that what I had experienced was child abuse, and that my parents should have been locked up for it. I honestly thought it was normal up till that moment. I left home at 15, so it stopped then. When I was 5 years old, I watched my father put a shotgun in his mouth and threatened to pull the trigger, my mom crying and trying to convince him not to, while my brothers and I watched from the swing set. My father denied it ever happened, but he was never a good person, and I have not had contact with him in almost 10 years, so that has helped tremendously. I'm sure I do have some PTSD from things I witnessed and survived through, but I just strive to make sure my son never has to look back on his childhood and come to the same realizations I did. When I went to my friend's place and figured out how nice and caring their parents were, I've never seen them holding hands or something else like that. They're arguing almost every week. I feel like they're getting a divorce soon. When I was 4 years old, my married father went out on a date with my daycare teacher, who knew he was married. It wasn't an immediate realization either. I didn't think the two of them dressing up and going out together was a big deal at first. I just thought that's what adults do. Then they came back and I heard them do other things that adults do, what I used to call mommy and daddy time. What sealed it was when she saw that I was awake, specifically getting myself some water, and she chose to sit me down and talk to me about how grown-ups don't always tell the truth to keep from hurting people's feelings, and how I should not tell my mother about this so her feelings don't get hurt. If she ever did find out about it, I don't know, but neither my mother nor my father are good people, so f*** it. I still have trouble understanding how people like their dads. Why are you not afraid of him? Why is he so nice and kind? Is he planning something? You mean to tell me that he's always like that, and he's not just being nice because someone else is around? He's actually a good role model? My younger sister and I were sitting on the back patio playing with cars when the girl next door came over. She was the same age as my sister, and we had just moved in from out of state, so we had a ton of questions about school and stuff. When we were done asking our questions, she asked if we wanted to go down to the marina with her, about a mile away. No, we can't go that far. She then asked if we wanted to go to her house. No, we can't go to other people's houses. So she asked if we wanted to go play badminton in her backyard. No, we can't leave our yard. So she offered to move the net to our yard. No, we can't, was our final answer. The truth is, we weren't allowed to leave the back patio until after lunch, because the grass might be still wet from dew in August in Florida with the morning temperatures in the 90s. In fact, if our stepmother had looked out the window and seen us not playing, she would yell at us and/or spank us. Until that girl came over, I just thought all kids had the same sort of rules. I was 2 months from my 15th birthday at this time, by the way. When I went to a counselor about my depression, and I learned that it wasn't normal to be routinely dragged out of my bed in the small hours of the morning and act as a mediator for my feuding parents, and be forced to side with one or the other on the insults they made about each other. When my mom refused to break up with her new boyfriend, even after she found out he was hiding heroin inside my sister's sock drawer, he also used his daughter to shoplift at electronics stores to make himself seem less suspicious. And finally, he gave my mom free weed that she didn't want, so she gave it to me when I asked her for some. It ended up being laced with PCP, and I had a mental breakdown to the point where I was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, where I was forced to stay for 8 days. This all happened at the age of 16. When I moved overseas to study medicine, I used to be very quick to anger. I was snappy, and I just thought that it was in my nature to be that way. But when I was living alone for 7 years, I discovered a completely different person I didn't even know existed within myself. I realized that a big part of the person I used to be was a survival mechanism. I had subconsciously adapted to being in a constant state of stress, being around extremely neurotic parents. I also realized that most people's parents are so loving to their kids. It always made me happy to see my friends communicate with their parents in a happy and healthy way, but it also made me realize I never got that kind of love from mine. One day when I have kids, I'm going to spend my life giving them all the love I never received as a kid. When the house smelled like cheap whiskey, I was around another friend's house and realized that such a smell was not prevalent, and I secretly wished that this putrid smell would go away. My dad was an alcoholic and would bark at my mother daily. He would beat her and treat her like a servant. Stupidly enough, when I was younger, I thought parents were supposed to be like that, always arguing and engaging in drama regarding other family members. I was neglected as well. I was not the brightest in my class, and no effort was made to discover why. Months later, it was discovered that I had dyslexia and some dyspraxia. But my parents were self-absorbed in their own little world, where their problems were the most important, even over their own kids. As a result, I became an aggressive and mischievous kid, because there were frequent calls made by my school, complaining about my behavior. Yet, nothing was done. I never had a normal childhood. It was more of a cesspool of conflict, drama, and anxiety. This made me uncomfortable when I was around my best friend's house as, for once, it was quiet and oddly peaceful. I never wanted to leave at that moment because I found a place that finally had no conflict, no yelling, just nothing. My best friend will never understand where I came from. He had a more comfortable and stable upbringing. It wasn't until later on that I realized how horrible my childhood really was. But my parents, as they grew older, realized that life is too short for all that bullshit. So they became more engaged with their kids. My dad stopped drinking, but he is paying for it now. However, although this was a positive development, thoughts about my childhood still linger, and I wish to put that all behind me. I was about 25, talking about my life growing up with my wife before we got married. She hugged me and cried for me. She held on tight. That's when I truly understood. My life growing up was not normal. My mom has a mental illness and was addicted to crack growing up. My brother had a bucket with doorknobs and keys for our bedroom doors to keep the crackheads out of our rooms. He bought us both machetes, and they were duct taped to the side of our nightstands by the beds. Never needed them, they were just in case. There are holes in those hallway walls, not from fists, but from my elbows, to get a full swing. Even though I have muscular dystrophy, I was strong and could fight. That's a whole other kind of thing I had to deal with too. My brother saved my mom's life from her prisoner ex-boyfriend who tried to kill her. Sometimes my mom would be gone for a week or so. We had no idea if she was even alive. We did everything ourselves and got ourselves to school. One time driving from a town away, my brother said, "I don't have any more money. I can't get gas. We might not get home tonight." The gas tank was low, and we made it home luckily. My mom was sentenced to treatment when I was 15. She had so much crack in her system, it was oozing through her skin in sores. She stole my brother's car, and I honestly didn't care if she got into a crash at that point. I hated her. She broke into my room and sold as much of my stuff as she could for more crack. She had to stay for 90 days. She voluntarily stayed for a whole year. It was her only chance. She knew we wouldn't accept her again if she used it again. She also knew she would end up dead. I visited her 3 times that year. When she came back, she lived with her parents to adjust and get a feel for if she could do it. I told my wife that it was almost more weird with her being sober. I don't even know who this woman is or how to act around her. She's stayed clean ever since. Her group of women in treatment was 40 of them. Her first week there, they told them all statistically, only 2 of them would stay clean for the rest of their lives. She's the only one who stayed clean. Multiple are now dead. That was normal for me. My wife had an actual normal childhood. She wonders how I grew to be so calm and gentle all the time. I guess it's easy with my mentality. Life is so peaceful now at age 31. We have great jobs. I feel I've made it. Actually, I have made it. I've made amends with my mom and our relationship is good. I asked my parents why don't they sleep in the same bed like all the other parents. My dad said he didn't like the noise of my mom's fans. My mom said the same. But I later found out when they separated that my dad had been planning to leave my mom since I was born. I slowly connected the dots when I realized my mom would constantly insult my dad's capabilities as a father, when he would work 12-hour days and come home to my mom complaining about something. I noticed he only smiled when it was just the kids and him. I noticed would wipe away his cheeks when I would come into his office after my mom was done, trying to convince their children he's a racist and he's lazy. I noticed he started drinking heavily, and I also noticed absolutely zero hesitation when I was in the hospital because I tried to overdose to escape my mom's abuse, and the nurse told him to either take me and move out, or she will call CPS. We were out of that house within the next 3 weeks after I completed my mental health therapy. My dad is doing much better. We are still working on his drinking and getting him a therapist to work through his Asperger's, but he's much more relaxed. I can finally hear his chuckle again. When I stayed the night at my best friend's house, we'd already had dinner, but I was getting hungry again. I asked my friend if we could get some candy from the kitchen. His parents had a bowl that was always full of it. He said, "Yeah, just go grab some." I asked about his dad, who was still awake and on his computer. My friend said he wouldn't mind. I still hid around the corner and peered to see if the coast was clear. His dad saw, and, like my stepdad always did, asked what I was doing. I asked if I could get some candy from the kitchen. Unlike my stepdad, he said, "Knock yourself out." And I double-checked and asked, "How many?" He said, "As many as you want. Grab me some too." I came back to the room with a shirt full of candy for both my friend and me. At my house, we were only allowed to eat what he made for dinner, and if you didn't like it, you went hungry. Mom made sure we were well fed, even if we had to wait till 2 a.m. for him to pass out drunk. I was about 10 at the time. 17 years later, and he's still my best friend. His dad passed away from cancer a few years ago, and his mom 2 years after that. The world is a bit of a dimmer place with them gone, but I will always carry their kindness with me. When I spent the night at my boyfriend's parents over Christmas, and then every time visiting them after that, they still have young kids, but there is no yelling, no beating, no family meetings to discuss how much of a burden the children are. No bread night, where you just have a slice of bread and water for dinner to teach us that we aren't poor. This is very low-key compared to everyone else, but I grew up extremely isolated because my dad was obsessed with the idea that someone was going to hurt me or take advantage of me because I am a girl. So my brothers were able to go out and have friends, but I wasn't. It hit me when I got in trouble, and they tried to ground me, but realized it was ineffective because I have no friends and never left home. So they took my library cards, reading was my form of escape, and made me sit in the living room. I had a bunch of odd punishments because I was isolated, so typical grounding didn't work. There were several moments for me, but I'll share my brother's. He loves psychology, morality, philosophy, and basically anything else that explains why people are the way they are. He watched this YouTube video one day when he was bored, called 15 Signs You Were Emotionally Neglected as a Child. It started out as curiosity, until he realized that he actually fit almost all 15 of the criteria. When I found out other parents don't tell their kids shit about each other, or tells you to wake your drunk dad up from the chair and make him go to bed. When my mom flipped on me for finally telling our doctor that my dad had been drinking all those years. When I found out it wasn't normal for one parent to make sure that you articulate yourself properly to your friends online, straight up agreeing to write replies to them, prompting to look over what you'd write in the first place. I had never been so insecure in my life from all of that. My family is not comfortable around each other. Never any touching, kissing, or cuddling. Any physical contact is forced and horribly awkward. No one also talks, and any disagreements simmer for years with a grudging resentment. When I first started dating my now husband, I was shocked his family would just sit close to each other, like their legs would touch on the couch. Like, not overly touchy, just normal, but not normal to me. They also spoke to each other if they were upset. I was quite envious. I thought everyone was unhappy as a child. I was 20 before I realized some kids are actually happy with happy little families. I also reasoned that stains on your clothes must just be invisible to other people because mine were always dirty and everyone else's looked clean. That domestic violence must be okay because I told my mother what happened at my dad's house at the weekends and she didn't do anything. I only realized last year that if I'd have told a teacher what I told her, that something might have changed.